Coming up on First at 4, new signs that the economy in the United States could be improving. And one Eastern Kentucky Tech Center receives a big donation from a nonprofit in Louisville following the flood.
Plus, cold air poised to move out of the region as more early fall-like air moves in for the beginning of December. What that means for rain chances this weekend coming up as First at 4 rolls along.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
New signs show the U.S. economy might be on the upswing. Prices at the pump continue to plunge, and a key measure indicates inflation might be peaking. CNN's Gloria Pazmino breaks down what this means for your wallet.
Economic relief may be on the horizon. A key measure of consumer prices slowed down in October, according to a report from the Commerce Department released Thursday. It's a sign that inflation may be cooling, and that's good news for your wallet.
Prices for things like clothes, television, and appliances are going down. That's good news for the holiday season.
The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, or PCE, rose 6% in October compared to the previous year. The measure is the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation tracker because it provides a fuller picture of consumer prices. Lower gas prices could also bring some relief to budget-strapped households. According to AAA, a gallon of regular gas is now selling for $3.47 nationally. It's the first week since February the national average has fallen below $3.50 a gallon.
Gas prices are down about $1.52 per gallon since June, for a savings of $160 per month for American families with 2 cars.
Chairman Jerome Powell says the Fed could pull back on its pace of aggressive rate hikes as soon as this month, but he's still cautious.
We will stay the course until the job is done.
I'm Gloria Pazmino reporting.
The positive economic news comes as the U.S. Supreme Court says the Biden administration program to cancel student loans will remain blocked for now, but the justices have agreed to take up the case in late winter. WYMT's Washington correspondent Peter Zampa joins us now from D.C. to discuss that and more. And Peter, good to have you with us.
Yeah, good evening, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Just a short time ago concerning student loans, and tell us what this means.
Yeah, so it means exactly kind of what you said. So the Supreme Court's saying the lower court's rulings are still in effect. This student loan repayment for folks who have student loans across the country, it's still blocked, but there is still an extension in place for a pause on student loan repayment, so folks don't have to pay their student loans back right now, and that extension is lasting 60 days after the courts decide on this. So the Supreme Court will hear arguments this winter. We'll expect a decision probably sometime in June, and then depending on how that comes out, folks will still have 60 days after that until they have to start paying off those loans again, unless the Biden administration's order is upheld.
Something we'll certainly continue to watch. Other news in Washington today, the president, of course, is hosting French President Emmanuel Macron at the White House. What's the purpose of that meeting?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's really just to welcome in our oldest ally in the United States in the French president to the White House. It's going to be the first state dinner for this administration tonight. But in a press conference earlier today, they obviously talked about the war in Ukraine and the Russian aggression there, and how both sides are trying to come together to solve this issue, to continue to support Ukraine, while also trying to figure out next steps and trying to figure out a resolution to this deadly war. They also talked about climate change, and they also did talk about the people of Iran and supporting that country during that tumultuous time. So a lot of issues that they're trying to come together on, and really restating their commitment to each other.
Well, on Capitol Hill, the House and now I believe the Senate has approved an agreement between rail workers and their employers avoiding a strike. For now, a sigh of relief for many. Well, what comes next there?
Yeah, Steve, so the Senate just moments ago voted overwhelmingly to codify this agreement that was struck in September between rail companies and union leaders. Not everyone is happy with this bill that the Senate and House both passed because it doesn't give enough sick leave to these workers that was really what they were fighting for in the end. Both the House and the Senate did vote on a separate package that would extend the sick leave to 7 days, up from 1, but it did not pass through the Senate with 60 votes, so that's not on the table right now as they came to this final agreement. But they did avert that shutdown, that strike that we were expecting next week that could have provided catastrophe, in the president's words, for the holiday season.
Yeah. In the coming days, Congress will vote to provide the government and the military with fresh funding in order to keep the government from shutting down. We actually ran a story you did last night at 11 about Kentucky Senator Rand Paul and some other Republicans possibly wanting to block that funding. Where does that stand now?
Yeah, so Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in the Senate said today he's hopeful both sides are coming to the table that something will get done, but they are still apart on some of these issues. And that is one of the issues. As you mentioned, Senator Rand Paul and a group of 13 senators at last count sent a letter to leadership basically saying, we want to vote to get rid of this Biden military vaccine mandate before we move on to vote for the final military funding package. And this comes as military leaders like Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin say, we need this money now. We're underfunded and there are mounting threats on the international stage. We can't mess around with this. But some Republicans feel very strongly about getting rid of that mandate, or at least voting to get rid of it, not that it would necessarily pass. So there is still an impasse on some of these things, but folks are expected to vote on these, as you said, in the coming days.
All right, finally, the DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committee is deciding this week on changes to the presidential election calendar. What does that mean for states with usually early contests like Iowa and New Hampshire?
Well, Steve, it could be bad news for Iowa and New Hampshire. It's a really big deal to be sort of the center of the political universe when you start talking about these general elections. But we saw what happened in Iowa in 2020. It wasn't good for the state of Iowa, how that caucus turned out and how the uncertainty of the numbers were still looming as candidates left the state. People didn't really know who won. To this day, some people might not know who won. And so that kind of uncertainty put a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of Democrats. But they're also saying that those states don't necessarily represent the makeup of the party, so they may want to go elsewhere. States like Nevada, Michigan, throwing their hats in the ring. So we'll see if any changes come.
All right, Peter Zampa, thank you. You'll be seeing more Peter in our newscast moving forward as he covers our Kentucky lawmakers for us in our nation's capital.
Well, a few clouds been pushing into the region so far today. A look outside right now. Plenty of sunshine at the front door here at WYMT. 41 the current reading as that sun continues its slow descent in the sky. A few more clouds there in Slade. They also sit at 41 along the Mountain Parkway at this hour. Temperatures region-wide into the middle 30s and low 40s. Already seeing some of those middle 30s. 36 Moorhead, 37 in Wise. Some middle 40s along and south of the Highway 80 Hal Rogers Parkway corridor. So we will continue to see some chilly air moving toward the mountains, but not quite as chilly as last night. We've seen a few of those clouds pushing through, but it's not a huge deal out there, and we'll continue to see clouds push through the region into tonight. Details, though, on when we return to the potential for showers, that's in a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thank you. More than 4 months after the devastating flood that's impacted many parts of our region, help is still coming in for many communities in the mountains. WYMT's Alyssa Williams is in Knott County with a big example.
July's flood completely devastated the Knott County Area Technical Center, which is the vocational school for Knott County Central High School. But today, things are looking a little bit brighter for students and staff. ATC has received help from the Louisville-based organization SOS International. The nonprofit donated 100 laptops to the tech center and will deliver 100 more in the near future.
Oh, it was so overwhelming. I couldn't believe they picked us to actually ask if we could use something like that. It was wonderful.
Technical Center classes have been operating here out of Knott County Central High School, and although staff have no definite timeline as to when the original building will be repaired, they say this act of generosity gives them hope for the future. In Knott County, Alyssa Williams, WYMT Mountain News.
Those with the Knott County Area Technology Center say nearly all of their equipment and projects at the vocational school were destroyed, causing them to make do with what they did have left, but they say receiving help like this lifts a huge burden from their shoulders. 2 women got away from a South Central Kentucky jail early this morning. One of them remains on the run. The Casey County jailer is not calling it an escape. He says the women were not in a locked part of the jail. But what did happen caused a delay for the local school system and a response from local law enforcement. The jailer says Angela Mason and Chastity Burton walked out of the jail a little after 4 this morning. The concern caused Casey County school leaders to delay buses going out and the start of the school day.
I have been told that they are actually, or they was working in the kitchen area and walked out of a unlocked door.
Earlier this afternoon, Mason was arrested after police say she was spotted walking on Kentucky 70 West when she called them. Police say both women will face charges of first-degree escape. They were in jail on possession of controlled substance charges. Coming up on First at 4, Americans are getting ready to travel, it appears, in 2023. We'll take a look at some recommendations for where to go before you book your trip.